Alrighty, thank you everybody for tuning in to this, the 18th iteration of the Konoha Companion. And this is Joshua. I'm your Konoha Companion, as always. And on this episode, we're going to be covering Season 1, Episode 18 of Naruto, entitled The Weapons Known as Shinobi. And on the previous episode, we basically learned a whole bunch more about Zabuza and Haku's backstories. Haku grew up in the Land of Waves immediately following an age of civil war, and during that war, the clans possessing Kekkei Genkai were used as instruments of war. When the war finished, the people who remained resented the Kekkei Genkai possessing clans of the Land of Water because of the pain that they had inflicted as instruments of war previous. Haku's mother, aware of this, hid her abilities, met Haku's dad, had Haku, and lived a normal life until Haku discovered his bloodline trait in front of his father, which prompted his father to gather a mob. The mob comes to Haku's house, Haku's father chief among them, and they kill Haku's mother with a club. They go to kill Haku, but he defends himself with his Kekkei Genkai and kills all the attackers. With his mother and father gone, Haku struggles to find purpose and lives a perpetual life of homelessness. Zabuza happens across Haku on a bridge and offers to take him in, saving him from the suffering of homelessness and ultimately a beggar's death, freezing in the cold alone in exchange for basically slavery, to bend to Zabuza's will in all things at all times. Haku finds purpose in this. Being a weapon on Zabuza's hip was better than nothing. It's also revealed that Zabuza attempted to assassinate the Mizukage, the leader of the village hidden in the mist, but failed, although he did avoid being detained afterwards. Now imagine if someone came in and almost killed the Hokage back in the village hidden in the leaves, and the entire village was only able to stop him from killing the Hokage, but weren't even able to keep him from escaping, and weren't able to track him down afterwards, so now this character is just out there lurking in the shadows forever as a threat. That's Zabuza to the village hidden in the mist, so he's a real big bad guy when it comes right down to it. To rehash the fighting that went down, while Kakashi is in the mist alone, he pulls out a scroll from a pouch in his vest, and he unrolls the scroll and swipes his thumb in the wound that Zabuza gave him earlier when they were fighting when Kakashi defended Tazuna, and he swipes that blood horizontally across the scroll. He then casts several hand signs and slams the scroll on the ground and summons several ninja hounds, who ambush Zabuza out in the mist because they can smell him and they're not effectively adhered by the mist as bad. Kakashi has Zabuza held down by his dogs, and he lets Zabuza know that it's the end of the road for him. The episode ends with Haku pleading for Naruto to kill him because he has no use or purpose anymore, and basically in his mind he's a tool for Zabuza, and with this defeat his usefulness has been removed, like a weapon that's been blunted that's of no use to anyone anymore. This episode starts by taking us back to Tazuna's house where Inari is sprinting along the pier, and it allows us a glimpse into his internal dialogue, and he's thinking, Naruto and the others are fighting and risking their lives, while the rest of us do nothing. We've got to fight too. And it zooms in on Inari's focused gaze, and the title screen comes in and Naruto reads, "The Weapons Known as Shinobi." And next Inari is banging on someone's door and he's yelling, Uncle Geechee, hurry. Come to the bridge with me. We don't have to hide any longer. If we all fight together, we can finally take Gato down. I know we can. And real quick, Uncle Geechee is the guy who said he wanted to quit because he was tired of risking his life for the bridge, and Tazuna ran off. And Inari reaches for the door handle, and the door handle clicks, right, like someone locked the door. And Gichi says from the other side of the door, "No, Inari, I've given up on fighting. Fighting's for heroes like your father. You see what good it did him. Isn't one dead hero enough? What will more fighting bring us but more fallen heroes and more regrets? No, Inari, my heart is already full of enough regrets to last a lifetime." And Inari clenches his fist and responds, "Well, I don't want to live a life of regrets either, and that's why we've got to fight." And it flashes back to his father figure, Kaiza, saying, "Live your life so you have nothing to regret." And it brings us back to Inari pleading with his uncle Gichi through the door, and he says, "I know you care about the village, and so do I. You and mother and grandfather and everyone. That's why we have to fight. All my life I've been a coward, but now I know that crying and hiding from things that we're afraid of doesn't make them go away." And Inari then turns and runs down the stairs, and then shows us Gichi, who is like standing inside with his back against the door, groaning, struggling with the moral dilemma. And he can hear Inari off in the distance yelling for people to come to the bridge. And he looks over at his wife, who's knitting at the tea table, who remarks, "Our little Inari has become a man. And you, dear, are you sure you want to send him off all on his own?" And it then shows Inari running around trying to gather people, but literally no one is hearing him out. No one will even come out of their house. And he asks aloud, "What do I do now?" Not one of them will even open their doors to listen. And he groans in frustration, and it flashes back to when Naruto was rubbing his head and telling him, "You really are brave," after he confronted Gato's thugs. And he then thinks, well then, if no one will help, and he just runs off intently alone. And it takes us back to the bridge, which is still smothered in dense mist, and it zooms in on Kakashi, who's standing in front of Zabuza, who's covered in ninja hounds. And Kakashi remarks, "Poor Zabuza, see where your ambitions got you? You're always pushing things too far. It was the failed Mizukage assassination and your attempted coup d'etat where you were forced to flee with your few followers you had. Your country's tracker ninja on your heels. You became a rogue ninja whose name was quickly known even in the village hidden in the leaves. Now you're crazy enough to want to go back and try it again. But for that, you need money. And to get it, you stoop so low as to be the hired thug of a swine like Gato. All right, Zabuza, enough talk. Time to finish it. But it won't be with Sharingan imitations of some other ninja's tricks. No, it's time I introduced you to my own jutsu." And Kakashi then casts several hand signs, and a swirling, crackling field of chakra that resembles electricity forms a circle around Kakashi on the ground and grows more and more violent. And then it shows Kakashi's holding a ball of lightning in his hand, and it's zapping all over the place. And it's particularly hitting the ground where the circle of chakra is. And Kakashi yells, "Lightning Blade." And this is lit. This is Kakashi's personal jutsu that he developed, not something he yanked off someone else. It's obviously cool looking, sounds cool. It's got a neat name. Let's see if it actually delivers on being effective now. I imagine if he's choosing to do it as opposed to any other copied jutsu that he could get from anyone else, it's got to be his most effective thing, right? So it's going to be exciting to see how effective the jutsu that the guy who has access to any jutsu develops and that he chooses as his most effective jutsu. Can't wait to see how it all pans out. This clearly shocks Zabuza, and he remarks, "His chakra is so strong it's visible. He holds it in his hand." And Kakashi locks in on Zabuza and says, "I won't allow you to kill Tazuna. He's a brave man with a noble dream. The bridge he's building is the hope of this land and all of its people. You're like a disease. By attacking one, you infect all, and you don't care. That is not the way of the shinobi." And Zabuza interjects sharply, "You're right, I don't care. These useless little people and their petty little dreams. Why should they matter to me? I have a dream of my own." And Kakashi claps back, "But to have a dream, you need to have a future. You don't. Your future's all used up, Zabuza." And at this point, it takes us back to the standoff between Naruto and Haku is telling Naruto, "Go on, finish it, kill me." And Naruto groans and steps back, right? He's never been confronted with something like this. He's obviously literally taken aback by it. And as Naruto steps back, Haku steps towards him and questions, "Why do you hesitate? I thought you wanted to be a mighty warrior." And Naruto exclaims, "That's not what it's about. Do you really believe that's all there is to it? Just fighting and killing till there's only one man left standing? There's a lot more to being shinobi than that, and there are other ways of showing your strength than just by beating someone in battle. And my man Naruto already knows that strength can be measured in more ways than one, and particularly in more ways than physical strength." Haku responds to all of this, "I had a feeling all along, from the first moment we met in the woods, we're a lot alike." And this startles Naruto, right? Remember, Naruto thought earlier after hearing Haku's backstory that Haku was just like him. So at this point, Haku has also recognized that Naruto is just like him as well. These guys have connected at that level. Haku continues, "I'm sure you know what I mean." And he's right. Naruto does. And he goes, "I'm only sorry that it must be your hand that is tainted with my unworthy blood." And Naruto asks him, "Sure about this? And you're positive that it's the only way?" And Haku responds simply, "Yes." This frustrates Naruto and he groans, he closes his eyes and he looks down and away and offers, "The weird thing is, if we met in another time and place, I think maybe we could have been friends." And Naruto opens his eyes and his gaze narrows in on Haku, and he starts sprinting towards him with his kunai drawn. And Haku thinks, "Yes, that's right. Hold fast to your dreams." And you can hear heart beating, and Naruto yells, "This is for Sasuke," because he also had a dream. And Naruto comes rushing in yelling, and Haku thinks, "Thank you, Naruto. Strike true." And he lowers his head, and the screen fades white. And I wonder if Naruto killed that bitch. Like, I hate that it's always, I don't hate, but I'm not accustomed to, as someone who's not very deep in the realm of anime, I'm not used to all the cliffhangers. Like, I want to see what happened. But patience is a virtue. I'm certain we'll get there in due course. At this point, it takes us back to Sakura and Tazuna remarks, "At last, I think this blasted fog is lifting." And Sakura says, "Look, they're standing still, like they're squaring off." And Tazuna says, "Yeah, I can't see a thing." And it shows like a blurry outline of the scene that has been unfolding between Kakashi and Zabuza. And Sakura asks aloud, "Which one is Kakashi Sensei?" She then gasps and yells, "One's moving." And it then shows us both Kakashi and Naruto rushing towards towards Zabuza and Haku respectively. And just at the last second, Haku grabs Naruto's attacking arm and says, "Sorry, Naruto, change of plan," and casts several hand signs with his free hand and says, "I'm not ready to die quite yet," and disappears in a plume of smoke. And it shows Kakashi rushing towards Zabuza, and Zabuza thinks, "Is this the end?" And the ground cracks and hisses steam, and a crystal ice mirror pops up, and Kakashi lunges with the lightning blade, and blood splatters everywhere, and Zabuza's groaning, and his eyes are fidgeting, and a shockwave goes in every direction, blasting over Tazuna and Sakura. And it shows blood dripping on the ground between Kakashi and Zabuza, and Kakashi's ninja hounds all disappear in plumes of smoke. And it then reveals that Kakashi has hit Haku with the lightning blade. And Haku used the ice mirror to teleport in front of Zabuza and absorb the attack, thereby saving Zabuza. And Haku grabs Kakashi's arms, coughs up blood, and shakily says, "Zabuza." And Zabuza then sharply says, "My future's all used up, huh?" And he chuckles and continues, "Wrong again, Kakashi." And it then fades us away to Tsunami telling Inari in Tazuna's house, "Don't be ridiculous. You aren't going to the bridge all by yourself." And it then shows Inari in a battle helmet and pulling on his best boots and getting ready to go deal with this by himself. He has a crossbow and some arrows, and he explains, "I have to go by myself because none of the others will come with me. I have no choice." And Tsunami yells for him, "You shouldn't go at all." And Inari doesn't even respond to this, stands up and heads for the door, and Tsunami pleads, "Stop this, you're only a child. What do you think you can do?" And Inari stops at the door and says, "You're right, I am just a kid." And he looks back at his mom and continues, "But a kid who knows what it means to stand and fight. I'm my father's kid." And she sees Kaisa's face in Inari's as he turns to the door, and she all bewildered remarks, "Kaisa." And Inari opens the door, and Tsunami yells, "Inari, please wait." And when Inari steps out the door, there are several shadows on the ground of a group of people waiting outside for him. And I wonder if this was the town folk or if it was Gato's thugs. It looked like one of the shadows had a pitchfork. I think that's the worldwide symbol for peasant uprising. So I'm going to say it's probably the townsfolk coming to rally. But I may just be being hopeful, right? Inari gasps at the sight of the crowd, and at this point we're taken back to the bridge where the fight is happening. And Naruto is stupefied by Haku vanishing on him, and he remarks, "Where'd he go?" And he looks around in confusion, and he notices the fog is lifting. And he looks over and sees the scene transpiring between Kakashi, Haku, and Zabuza, and asks aloud, "Is that him?" And he runs over to get a clearer view, and he realizes what he's seeing, and he's stopped in his tracks by it. And he remarks, "I don't get it. What the heck is going on here?" And it shows us Sakura and Tazuna, who are both also shocked by this. And Tazuna asks, "Isn't that the young man in the mask?" And Kakashi remarks, "The boy threw himself in front of my attack. He saved your worthless life at the cost of his own." And he's saying this is Zabuza, right? And Haku has a smile on his face, and Zabuza laughs and says, "Well done, Haku." And Zabuza then yells and swings his sword at Kakashi and Haku both. And Kakashi thinks, "He'd hack right through the boy to take me down?" And Zabuza thinks, "I knew I'd found a treasure when I found you, boy. You've not only given me your life, but Kakashi's as well." And as his blade comes down, the screen fades white, right? Another cliffhanger. And we're taken back to Zabuza and Haku standing at the overlooking point at the village hidden in the mist, where Zabuza says, "My time here is done, Haku. Tonight I cast aside the land of water. One day I will return and seize this land and hold it in my hands. Many things must be done before that day comes, and you will help me to do them. But I warn you, friendship, comfort, encouragement, I do not need these things, nor should you expect them from me." And Haku smiles and says, "I understand. I'm yours, Zabuza. I am only an instrument of your will. Think of me as a weapon to be kept at your side, and used as you see fit. And Zabuza cracks a little smile that you can see through his face coverings and says, "Well said, child." It then flashes to the sword coming down on Kakashi and Haku, and it then flashes briefly to Zabuza and Haku hugging right whenever Zabuza got Haku out of homelessness, whenever they struck the deal on the bridge. And it then shows Zabuza slashing and Kakashi leaping out of the way with Haku at the last second. Kakashi lands and Haku is lifeless in his arms. And Zabuza laughs and remarks, "Not bad for having a corpse in your arms." And what a savage, what an asshole. And the beat drops and Naruto exclaims, "You'll pay for that." And Kakashi yells, "No, stay out of this, Naruto." And Kakashi then lays Haku's body on the ground and closes Haku's eyes. He's clearly infuriated by the way all of this has transpired and looks up at Naruto and remarks, "This is my battle. Zabuza's mine." It then takes us to Sakura and Tazuna, and Sakura calls for Naruto and tells him to come over here. And Naruto is clearly dreading having to tell Sakura the news of Sasuke's death. And right on cue, Sakura asks Naruto, "So you and Sasuke are all right?" And Naruto stalls and groans, not knowing how to break the news. And Sakura continues on happily, "Where is Sasuke anyway?" And Naruto just can't bring himself to say what he has to say. And he's like breaking down, and Sakura starts to piece it together. And she remarks, "No," in disbelief. And Kakashi looks up and says, "Sakura." But he's cut off by Zabuza, who sharply calls out for him, "Kakashi, I'd stay focused if I were you." Who then comes rushing in with a big sword attack, and Kakashi from his squatted position kicks up and hits Zabuza on the chin with a quick kick up the middle like an uppercut, which sends Zabuza flying. And it takes us back to Tazuna and Sakura is clearly in complete shock after having realized the truth of Sasuke's death. Tazuna at this point offers, "Let me take you to him, Sakura. As long as we stay together, you won't be disobeying your sensei's orders." And Tazuna's my man, dude. Always coming through in the clutch, doing what's right. Sakura thanks him and grabs his hand, and they start running towards Sasuke's body. And they run right past Naruto, who then hangs his head and somberly remarks aloud, "Sasuke." And Sakura comes across Sasuke's body and is just startled by the sight of his lifeless body, which is full of senbon, and she gasps. And it's even difficult for Tazuna, and she groans, and Tazuna has to avert his gaze from the whole situation. And Sakura falls to her knees and touches Sasuke's face and remarks, "His body's cold. This isn't just one of his genjutsu tricks, is it?" And Tazuna tells her, "Go on. You don't need to be brave on my account. Go ahead and let your feelings out, Sakura. It's all right." And Sakura says aloud as she caresses Sasuke's face, "I was the best. Aced every test at the academy. The perfect student. Did you know there are more than 100 principles of shinobi conduct? I memorized every single one. I used to love it when they tested us on them. Gave me a chance to show how smart I was. I remember so clearly this one exam. They asked us to explain the 25th principle. I got it right, of course. A shinobi never shows his feelings, no matter what the circumstances. Feelings are a weakness that only cloud his judgment and weaken his sense of duty." And it shows Sakura's crying, and her tears are literally falling off of her face and landing on Sasuke's face. And she screams out for Sasuke and crumbles over onto his chest and just starts sobbing uncontrollably. And Tazuna, seeing this unfold, thinks, to put such an unbearable burden on a young girl's shoulders. If that's the shinobi way, you can have it. But this ain't necessarily the shinobi way. This was supposed to be a C-rank mission. You're the one who got these kids in over their head. This ain't necessarily some issue with the culture surrounding shinobi. This has everything to do with, well, it does come back to, the culture surrounding it, where they're doing it all for profit, and, he couldn't afford it, the people couldn't afford it, and etc. But the truth is that the village hidden in the leaves did not intend on sending out these kids into this dangerous of a situation. It was actually a situation that Tazuna got them into, and let's not let that be lost on us. Although Tazuna has won my respect back, and he's always, being trill and, trying to look out for these kids and stuff now, the truth is that he's the one who got them into the bad situation to start. So it's all got to be taken with a grain of salt. It then shows Naruto and Sakura both crying over the loss of their teammate. And with the clang of blades, we transition back to the fight between Zabuza and Kakashi. And they separate, and Zabuza has a couple of kunai sticking out of his left arm. And he falls to one knee, panting. And he thinks, why? Why can't I keep up with him? And Zabuza then screams and sprints at Kakashi and swings a big wide swing of his sword. And Kakashi simply uppercuts him and knocks him back. And he then hits him with a spinning back fist, which knocks Zabuza even further back. And Zabuza, clearly getting desperate, yells, "I'll split you in half." And with his one good arm, goes to swing his sword at Kakashi, who easily avoids the attacks. Zabuza's second attack hits the concrete and breaks the ground and sticks in the bridge. And Kakashi then suddenly appears behind Zabuza and grabs him by the back of the neck and says, "Look at you, you're falling apart. I knew you didn't have what it takes for the long haul." And Zabuza, shocked, kind of asks angrily, "What did you say?" And Kakashi responds, "You have no idea what real strength is." And Zabuza pants, and with a single bead of sweat coming down the side of his face, and suddenly a cane hits the ground twice, and a voice can be heard saying, well, so this is how it turned out, huh?" And Kakashi pulls out 2 more kunai and says, "Game over, you lose," and goes to land the finishing strike, but Zabuza counterattacks by swinging his big sword from behind from a weird angle, and Kakashi has to dodge and winds up stabbing Zabuza in his good arm with the 2 kunai instead of landing a kill shot. And so now Zabuza has dropped his sword, right? Both of his arms are bad and he can't even hold his sword. Kakashi then remarks, "Now both of your arms are useless. Now what? You can't even make hand signs." And you can see blood dripping from Zabuza's fingertips. And the man with the cane steps in and says, "Did quite a number on you, didn't he, Zabuza? You look like yesterday's sashimi. I must say I'm disappointed." And it's revealed to be Gato, here in the flesh, and behind him is a large group of his thugs. And with this, the episode ends. And so, some final thoughts on it are, this asshole Gato's finally here, right? He's actually doubled down. This is a big enough deal. He's going to control the Land of Waves. One of the things I questioned earlier was whether or not this was something that Gato would throw his entire resource stack at, which evidently he is, with him even with, his whole resource stack includes him in the flesh, right? He is here to see it through himself. He's got his whole mob behind him, and we're going to see how it plays out now. Now the shit's really hitting the fan. I can't believe our man Haku sacrificed himself for Zabuza just when I was starting to like homie. Kakashi blew his chest out with a lightning blade, which, shout out the lightning blade. It's obviously a lethal, badass jutsu, as Haku found out the hard way. Zabuza is so evil. The dude laughed and went to slice Haku and Kakashi in half after Kakashi hit Haku with the lightning blade. The fucking disrespect on display is extraordinary. I can't wait for Kakashi to finish this fool off. He's got both his arms compromised at this point, so he can't really swing a sword or cast hand signs. So it's got to be getting wrapped up pretty quickly, right? Gato and his thugs showed up at the last minute, so it looks like Zabuza has an opportunity to escape now that Gato has a whole horde of these guys here to stop the bridge from being built. It isn't just up to Zabuza. Meanwhile, Inari is out trying his best to gather his own horde. We can't forget about that, but with the development of Gato and his horde showing up, it definitely seems more likely that the horde that showed up in front of Inari's house was Gato's horde, not some town people. It's probably going to be revealed that Gato and them stopped by Inari's house on the way over here and dealt with that type shit. I can't believe Sasuke's legit dead right now. We're several episodes in and this fool's still dead. Sakura can't believe it either. And she can't keep it together even though showing no emotion is the 25th principle of ninja conduct. And she's usually very stoic with it, but she just, Sasuke's her whole ninja way is rooted in Sasuke, right? And so when this happens, it's the end of the world. I can't wait to see how this all pans out. I doubt that Zabuza is going to be able to take on a horde of Gato's thugs. Maybe they talk it out. I don't know. Well, we're going to see how it all pans out, right? There's a lot of balls that are in the air, a lot of variables at play, and we're going to see where the chips land, when they land. And with that, I could put a bow on this episode, y'all. I really, really appreciate everybody tagging along with me through this. We're 18 episodes in. The next episode is actually the final episode of the Land of Waves arc. The full first arc is about to be completed next episode. And then the episode following that will be a review episode of the entire arc. I'm going to go and do a quick rundown of the entire arc. So that'll be episode 20, and then episode 21 will be episode 20 of Naruto, right? So we're going to be one off moving forward because I'm going to have an extra in there where we discuss in detail the arc in its entirety, right? I'm going to go through and kind of compile all of my final thoughts from the end of each of these episodes and make a master file and go back and watch a bunch of these episodes again and kind of put together my final thoughts and try and make at least, a 30-minute coherent episode about, what happened from start to finish in this 19-episode arc. But, that's still 2 episodes out, right? We've still got episode 19 coming up. So with that, I really appreciate everybody listening. I'm Joshua. I'm your Konoha companion. I'm really looking forward to going over episode 19 with you. Thank you so much for all the good vibes and for listening. Please consider going and participating in the comments, sharing the memes, being friendly, guys. The whole point of this thing is to be friends. And with that, thank you all so much. Have a fantastic evening. I'll catch you next time.